Welcome to TM Radio Broadcasting. My name is Frank Allen. We are live from Boston, Massachusetts. It is Friday, June 30, 2023. Tonight, we have once again a very special guest, Janet Starr Hull. Now, I've given you background before, but I'm going to give you the background again. She graduated from Lake Highlands High School in Dallas in 1973, the American Health Science University in 1994. Janet earned a Bachelor's of Science in International Geography at the University of Texas at Austin in 1997. Also, in 1997, she authored Sweet Poison, explaining the dangers of aspartame in the foods and drinks that we consume. And we have a big announcement on aspartame today, but I'm going to let Janet give that to you. She did earn a master's degree in environmental science from Texas A&M University in 1982, PhD in holistic nutrition from Clayton College in the year 2000, environmental science professor at the University of North Texas. Janet went on to form Starr Resources International in 2004, the Holistic Network, LLC, in 2008, and Microbe Conversions, LLC. And this is a research company. Now, Janet would love to answer all of your questions. Please call in and get in the caller queue at 617-987-8603. Janet's education and qualifications make her an excellent addition to the field of experts that we have assembled over the years. Okay, we have a caller already. Go ahead, caller. Go ahead, caller. Go ahead, caller.
Hello?
Yes, sir. You are on TM Radio Broadcasting with Janet Starr Hull. Okay, call back when you got yourself together. Thank you.
He might have been muted. That's easy to do.
Yeah, yes, it is. And but I'm going to, since we've had a little break in the action here with that phone call, I'm just going to turn the mic right over to you, and you can fill us in about your or the latest developments from the World Health Organization. Go right ahead, Janet.
Well, I tell you, thank you, Frank. I've been really, really pumped up today talking with people from all over the world about the news that the WHO finally released that next month, they're going to have a month to stew on this, I guess, or to figure out how they're going to put it all together. But they have finally made the announcement that aspartame is a carcinogen. And what I find very interesting is that they have known this for 50 years. So I'm kind of curious about why they decided to break this announcement now, 50 years later. And as you and I were talking in the pre-show, what are they going to do to replace all this? Is Diet Coke going to become like Bud Light, to where, it's just going to crash and people aren't going to use it anymore? I mean, they are in this for profit, and they are in this for dominating the market. So for them to do this without having something else to go to, I am seriously curious about what is going on. I'm happy about the news, of course, but like I said, this is not new news. They have known that aspartame is a carcinogen for 50 years. And I have the timeline, the research, the congressional hearings, the Senate hearings. I have all of the documentation that this was clearly documented beginning in 1970 that aspartame causes cancer.
Do you
So the
do
whole thing
you
is just very curious.
yeah? Do you think
Say,
that that's Coca-Cola that's behind this, or it's got to be a large company that's behind this?
I think it's politics that's behind it, to tell you the truth. Right now, we are in a political world. Politics runs, well, of course, big corporations run politics, it seems, these days. But if big corporations are behind this, I'm curious about that because of their profitability. News like this is only going to crash aspartame's profits. And granted, aspartame, the NutraSweet, well, we can back up here just a second. GD Searle Pharmaceuticals was the original creator of aspartame. It was discovered in 1965 as an ulcer medication. The research scientists were in the lab looking for a new a new ulcer drug. Typically done, researchers drop their papers, they drop their pens, they drop everything, and he licked his fingers to pick his ledger up off the floor, noticed that it was sweet. Somebody at GD Searle had the brilliant idea to introduce a new zero calorie, calorie free sweetener substitute because saccharin had been on the market, was the only alternative sugar substitute available at the time. It was not making huge profits. And so somebody had the brilliant idea to change the paperwork on this drug, and it's simply applied to the FDA as a food substitute, a food additive, as opposed to a medicine.
I see.
So they began to market it as a food substitute, as a food additive. And they started pushing that, and aspartame then became saccharin's competitor, which Monsanto Chemical Company owned at the time. They owned the patent on Sweet and Low and saccharin. So the sweetener wars began at this time, but that was in 1965. Many of the independent researchers, and back in those days, you had the corporate researchers and you had independent researchers at universities and medical schools that were truly good researchers, and it was truly good science. They began looking at this very closely immediately because they knew by logic that you can't take a medication and just switch the label on it and turn it around and put it in the food supply for all ages to consume, for pregnant women to consume, for large consumption, because medication is taken in increments and in small doses, whereas if you take a medicine and you put it in your food supply, everybody's going to be getting a dose of this all day every day. So the researchers knew that something wasn't right, so they began looking at it very closely. And Dr. John Olney was one of the first researchers from Washington School of Medicine in St. Louis to begin his research on it. And he knew by 1970, Frank, he knew that aspartame was a carcinogen because it was eating holes in the brains of his laboratory mice. They literally were having lesions in their brain mass. It was
Wow.
developing tumors in the ovaries, in the uterus, in the testes, in the breasts of his laboratory animals. So they knew in the 1970s that aspartame was a carcinogen when put into the public food supply.
You answered my question.
Okay, probably a lot of them. That was a long one. Sorry.
You answered the one that I was going to ask, does this get by the blood-brain barrier? And I guess it
Yes.
does, and it would.
Yes, it does. The original aspartame, it's been tweaked over the years because its patents run out. So they have to just tweak it up a little bit so that they can re up a new patent on it. But the original aspartame had only three ingredients in it: 50% isolated amino acid phenylalanine, 40% the isolated amino acid aspartic acid, and those two amino acids were bonded together with free methanol.
Ooh,
So those were the only three ingredients. So the aspartame was extremely toxic from the get-go for many reasons. The phenylalanine does its own damage. The aspartic acid does its own damage, and of course the formaldehyde, I mean the methanol, when it's heated above 86 degrees, it turns into formaldehyde.
great.
But the aspartic acid and the phenylalanine are both amino acids, and so they can penetrate through the blood brain barrier. And they do, and they did, and they are in the brain. Yes.
What do you think the FDA is thinking about right now, learning of what the World Health Organization has said?
Ooh, that is a good question. Today's FDA are pretty dumb. They're pretty bought off, in my opinion. Um, they don't know the history of just about any and everything that they're having to look at and investigate for public safety. But I don't feel that it's just the FDA that's guilty of this. I feel that it is our educational systems, it's our AMA and our allopathic doctors, generally speaking. I do not believe that people are educated today like they were 50 years ago, and they're not educated today as they should be. There is a lot of history on many, many products, many, many drugs and medications, vaccines, and food additives that have not been researched thoroughly and have not been publicized correctly to the consumer. I do believe that aspartame is probably one of the best examples of this because of its history. I'm one of the few people remaining today that has the original documents of aspartame's approval history, of sucralose's, which is Splenda in the United States, of its approval history, of saccharin's history, of stevia's history. I have all of the documents, the research papers, the congressional hearings, the Senate hearings, the special counsels that they called, and the subcommittee hearings that they had called. I have all of this documentation. Many people did have it in the past, but a lot of our researchers, a lot of our aspartame um, supporters for my work, they've passed on. They're older now. This has become a historic relic, and it is getting buried and forgotten. So, to answer your question, I think that the modern day FDA has absolutely no clue what is going on, no clue about the history of aspartame. And what I think the WHO is going to do is trot out new studies that are proving the original studies and the older studies beginning in the 1970s. So I think they're going to try to gaslight the public that this information is, oh my gosh, we've just realized this, and not educate the public that this is information that has been documented and known since the 1970s.
Okay, I just wanted to sneak in there with this, and I think it's not going to be a question. It's going to be a statement. And my question was, do you act in behalf of the people? Number one. Number two, have you ever been an expert witness in a trial against one of the producers of aspartame. And I think all of these are going to happen. So it's almost a prophecy here. Go ahead, Jenny.
Frank, those are excellent questions. They are, and they have sort of a long history to them too. Yes, I have been doing this for 30 years, and I have continued my work trying to ring the bell and be the whistleblower on the dangers of aspartame, whereas so many, as I previously stated, so many researchers, lawyers, and advocates about the dangers of aspartame have either passed away or they have just completely just fallen out of this. Um, I have carried it on, and I think for one reason I wrote a book on it. I almost died from it in 1991, and at that time I was an environmental toxicologist, and my job was to identify toxins in the environment that were causing, the natural environment to be sick and to die. And so, because of that expertise, I was able to, when I was diagnosed with an incurable disease caused by aspartame, my doctors didn't know what caused my disease, but I knew there was a cause. And so I went out to search for it and I found it. And I found the researchers and the people that also knew that aspartame was toxic. I had been poisoned by aspartame. And when I removed that and then restored my health naturally using the hair analysis and detoxification and nutrient supplements, I restored my health and I cured my disease in 6 weeks. So I thought, wow, this is really cool. I'm going to write a book about it and I'm going to change the world and everybody's going to find out about aspartame and it'll get off the market and yada yada. Well, 30 years ago, I've been waiting for this WHO announcement that aspartame is a carcinogen. It didn't happen quickly, and for 30 years, I've just stuck with it. My book was out there. It has saved many lives. It's helped many people, and I'm grateful for that. And I feel that it is a wonderful thing if I can help other people. That's what I'm here to do. That's why I'm here. So, yes, it affects everyone, and I'm here to continue to be a whistleblower on the dangers of aspartame, and I want to resurrect it so that people understand that this has been an issue for over 50 years, and that the issues that we're facing today, Frank, with questioning vaccines, um, and questioning our medical community and what we're being told today, I just want people to realize this isn't new. This has been going on for decades. And I've got the proof that this has been going on for 50 years concerning aspartame. And forgive me, I got off in the weeds there. I forgot your other
That's
question.
okay. That's okay. That's quite all right. Now, people are going to want to know, and we have to keep announcing this throughout this show, that the
Mm-hmm.
World Health Organization has determined that aspartame is a carcinogen. And
Mm-hmm.
people are going to want to know what other foods contain this sweetener because they're not going to buy them. Some of
Mm-hmm.
the stores are going to pull them from their shelves.
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely sure of that. And
Right.
so, what other foods can you think of that may have this in it?
Many foods, and it's in foods that are not labeled as sugar free. Back in the day, because the phenylalanine in aspartame was known by everyone and they couldn't cover it up, that it affected people that had PKU, phenylketonuria. And this was the inability to process the amino acid phenylalanine. And it can cause fetal deformities and it can cause mental retardation and an early death. So aspartame back in the day had to be labeled, it had to be labeled as sugar free and it had to have the warning on it, caution, PKU, so that people that were PKU would not use it because they knew that it would cause them to have a near fatal, if not a fatal, health reaction. Today, that isn't being done. So, like I was saying just a minute ago, people are forgetting that the phenylalanine in aspartame is very dangerous for people that are PKU. Hold on one second. Let me shut my door here. My dog's barking.
That's okay.
They no longer publicize that. They no longer put on many products that it is sugar free. You have to turn the product over and read the ingredients to find out if aspartame is in it. And
Right,
I'll give you
right.
some examples on that. Low fat, fat free products, those are probably going to also have aspartame and artificial sweeteners in them to make them low fat and fat free and calorie lesser calories. So if you're looking for products that are low fat or fat free, they probably have the artificial sweeteners in them, but it's not labeled as sugar free. They have them in children's vitamins. They have them in children's cough syrup. They have them in yogurts. So
Oh
if you get
gosh.
a fat free or a low fat yogurt, turn it around. It's going to have an artificial sweetener in it. And they have it in cereals. They're putting this stuff in cereals and they do put it in medication. Aspartame is found in children's Tylenol and
Wow.
it's not labeled as sugar free. It's in cough medicines, Tylenol, and gum. Every gum you see on the shelf. It used to be labeled sugar free gum. Now it's just whatever the label is. And it doesn't even say sugar free. And it will have 4 or 5 different artificial sweeteners in that one stick of gum.
Wow. I have
Yeah.
to ask you, uh, do you, are there any acceptable limits to this that they're going to try and roll with? I mean, this is my first fear with this. They're going to come up with acceptable limits. Like, oh God, they have poison in a lot of the foods, but it's an acceptable limit, you know?
Yeah, that's a really good point to make. And they probably will try that. But the thing that people have to realize, aspartame and all of the diet sweeteners already do have an acceptable limit. For the FDA to get off the hook, they will put an acceptable limit, which would be an RDA. They do it for vitamins, vitamin C, for any food additive, there will be an acceptable limit attached to its patent when the FDA approves it. But the thing to be realistic about is that is never followed because people don't stop and think, okay, I can only have this much of this because it has this ingredient in it, and I can only have that acceptable limit of it. No, they just eat what they want, grab as much as they want, chew as many sticks of gum as they want, drink
Right.
as many diet colas as they want, thinking that it's a free ticket to, drinking as much as they want with no responsibility. And so before they know it, by the end of the day, they have pumped so many toxic chemicals, so much of these diet sweeteners, food additives, MSG, food colorings. We could go on and on. They have dumped so much of that into their bodies, accumulated throughout the day, that they are well over any safe limit. So that
Uh,
was a great question.
Janet, what can we do to help you? I mean, I am going to do my best to get the word out there for you. But what can everyone do? Start reading labels and complaining to the manager of a grocery store. What can we do?
Well, that is a good point. You can take a product that has a diet sweetener in it, even if you've opened it. If you've bought a product and you didn't realize that it had aspartame, asulfame K, sucralose in it, and you open it and you look at that and you go, ooh, no, I don't want this. You can take that back to your grocer and tell him, I'm sorry, this was not clearly labeled on the front of the packaging. I do not want these chemicals. I'm returning this product. That manager then will give you your money back and he will return it, or he should return it back to the manufacturer. That is a wonderful, excellent way to let these companies know. And Bud Light's a perfect example. You're just not buying the product.
Right.
So that's an excellent way for these companies to know, uh-oh, we've gotten found out. People aren't buying our stuff now. That's about the only way they're going to change things is profitability.
I,
So
I,
that is one excellent way.
I,
The other way is, yes, you have to take your time, Frank, when you walk through the grocery store. When you go to the store, do you ever see somebody like me stopping and reading
yes.
the label?
Yes, I
Right.
do.
That's what we all need to do. That's what we all need to do. Put back the products that are full of a chemistry book. Buy products that have the least amount of ingredients in them. Buy the freshest products that you can when you go to the store, and those are usually the products in the coolers sections along the perimeter of the grocery store. Your fresh produce, your fresh meats, your fresh dairy. Those are all on the perimeter of the grocery store. All of the boxed, laboratory produced products are in the middle of the store. The boxes that can sit on the shelf for 3 months without turning rancid. Those are the ones you want to avoid. You want to try not to buy those products. And I think that we can send a message through our marketing dollar. If we're not buying the product, the companies are going to make changes. So that is an excellent way to do that. That and read your labels. And like you said, spread the word, tell people, tell people. Because if you care about people, I mean, I get to finally take off my tinfoil hat, right? I'm finally exonerated by
Yes,
all
you
of my
are.
friends and family that have been listening to me harp on this for 30 years. I'm finally exonerated.
I
But
tell
it's
you
not just the
what,
aspartame.
I'm gonna
Yep, go
break
ahead.
my I'm gonna break my arm patting you on the back. I'll tell you that because this is a major breakthrough, and
Yeah,
there will be many changes. Uh, I am going to send out information to all of the human rights agencies in behalf of the Allen Institute, and we will get this
excellent.
stuff taken out of stores, out of products, out into the trash with it. And that's what
Yes.
we'll do.
But I'll tell you what, Frank, I'm an optimist. I am. I'm a positive person, but I smell a rat. I just
Okay.
smell a rat. They're going to be losing money. They're going to be losing profitability on this. So I wonder, why did they do it now? And what? And you were the one that actually mentioned this. What are they going to replace it with?
Exactly.
What are they going to replace? And as far as I know, there is nothing out there that is slotted to replace it that I have heard of. So
Well,
this is very, very interesting.
I feel for the kids because the kids just take Diet Coke or whatever it is,
Hmm.
and if a young lady is on a diet, she's going to look for a diet drink, and this is what she's going to choose, and it just it's all wrong.
Hmm.
And as far as replacing it, what they're going to have to do is take it back to the 30s and 40s and 50s before this stuff came out
Yep.
and diet correctly. Don't eat
Yep.
things with sugar. If
Right.
you're putting on weight, watch your diet. So that's oh,
Exercise.
all right.
Eat.
It's the top of the hour, and we have a brand new commercial. And oh, before we do that, Janet would love to answer your questions. Please call and get in the caller queue at 617-987-8603. And thank you very much.
If you are interested in natural alternative health and nutrition, look no further than Dr. Janet Starr Hall. a leading expert in the field with over 25 years of experience. After healing herself from a near fatal disease caused by aspartame, Dr. Hull has dedicated her work to helping others take control of their health and wellness through simple nutrition strategies and natural detoxification. Join Dr. Hull's private online community at janethull.com, JANETHULL.com, and gain access to her hair analysis program, her natural detoxification videos, her pH balance program, healthy recipes, a weekly live Q&A session, and special guest interviews. Receive support from a thriving community of like-minded individuals who share your passion for holistic health. Join her private online community today, where you can learn how to improve your health and wellness through natural, holistic practices.
Okay, and Janet Starr Hull is here with us tonight, and wasn't that great? She's here with us tonight.
I really appreciate that, Frank.
Oh, not a
What
problem.
we have to do is just keep spreading the word, you know. Like I said, I've been doing this for 30 years, and you've been doing this for how many years?
Probably right around 12 anyway.
Yeah. This is what it's all about. And I think if we can begin to re-educate, begin to stimulate people's curiosity and common sense and get that back, we can just get back to living a simpler life, a healthier life, and a happier life. These products, aspartame affects your attitude, your mental health. It really does. And so, if we can begin to get these toxic chemicals out of our foods and out of our lives, we can begin to be happier and less stressed, less anxious. It really does make a big difference.
Okay, I have a question. Are third world countries being abused by these substances without their knowledge?
I don't think the countries buy into the bells and the whistle products like we have, like Diet Coke or Bud Light. They don't care about those types of things. However, the third world countries have been experiments for the big pharma medical research and for the vaccines and for the pharmaceuticals. And I don't believe that it is for their benefit. I think it's more because they are just being used as societal experiments. So when it comes to food and to like the diet sweeteners, they don't buy into this kind of stuff. They know better. But when they're sold the vaccines and they're sold the pharmaceutical interventions, they do that because they do that for the benefit of their children, thinking that that's going to help their children live a better life. So I think it's sort of a split community. They won't push the food products on them as much as they push the medications and the vaccines.
Okay, I have another question here. What do you believe is the opinion of the medical community in general? Do they have they tried to railroad or otherwise deter your work? And if so, in what way was this attempted?
Absolutely. When I cured myself of Graves' disease, hyperthyroidism, which was affecting my heart, and I discovered what had caused it, and I discovered how to fix it nutritionally. I went back to my doctor because I had been I checked myself into the emergency room because I was getting ready to code,
Okay.
and my internist that was working in the ER that night became my internist that helped me get through my Graves' disease. I didn't do anything that he recommended. I didn't tell him. And I don't recommend that for people. Okay. It's just that I was a toxicologist, so I kind of sort of knew what I was doing, but I don't recommend that for most people. But I did not follow my doctor's advice. And when I cured myself, I went into his office and I shared with him, as a professor, as a researcher, what I had found, all of the research, all of the documentation. He didn't even know what aspartame was. He had never heard of aspartame. He said that that the only information that he received at that time to keep him updated came over their fax machine, because that's what they used. We didn't have the computers in the 90s. And he also said that the only information that keeps him up to date come from his pharmaceutical representatives. So he had no continuing education. He had no awareness of anything like aspartame and aspartame dangers. He told me that I was not the medical doctor. I didn't know what I was talking about, and that I couldn't cure my Graves' disease and that it would come back. Well, that was in 1991. Hasn't come back. I cured it, and I'm in perfect health, and I have been ever since. So I believe that over the decades, when my kids were young in the 1980s, I still had my old school pediatrician that was an older man. I believe that medicine was still good medicine and that doctors were still good doctors. But I believe that that has faded away over time. And decade by decade, it's gotten worse and worse. I don't have much faith in the medical community today because I believe that they are pharmaceutical reps. I believe that they're told what they can say and what they can't say. And I think that the best ER docs, those are the best docs, the ones in the emergency room. And to tell you the truth, I think a veterinarian would probably make a better human doctor than a human doctor today because
I've
they're
heard that.
actually working to
I
do
have
some good.
I
Yeah.
have heard that before. Um,
Yep.
because they are dealing with patients who cannot tell them what is wrong. So they are better
Correct.
equipped at diagnostics.
Correct. I asked my doctor, I simply asked him, because I was in the emergency room and I was admitted to the hospital for 4 days to get me stable because I was extremely unstable. My heart rate and my blood pressure were very unstable, caused by the aspartame. Once they stabilized me and he diagnosed me with hyperthyroidism and Graves' disease, my simple question was, well, what caused it? And Frankie looked at me with a deer in the headlights and said, well, we don't know what causes it. So I said, okay, how do you know how to fix it? Well, he really didn't have an answer. He just said, well, we just do. And we'll remove your thyroid and we'll put you on medication that you'll have to stay on for the rest of your life, but you'll be good as new. And I looked at him like, are you crazy? How can you fix something if you don't know what caused it? How can I clean up an environmental spill if I don't know what the toxic spill is, right? And so it didn't make sense to me. And it still doesn't make sense to me. How can medical doctors treat a disease if they do not know what caused the disease? Because if you don't remove the cause, the disease is never going to go away.
That's right. And I had a question for you. It's on topic, but it's off topic a little bit. Do you know the train wreck in Ohio
Yes.
that caused all of those clouds and all of the liquid dioxin going into the ground?
Yes.
I don't think they can ever clean that up.
Well, I tell you, I am a HAZWOPER, OSHA engineer, certified engineer, and so I've done toxic spills like that. I've performed toxic spills like that. That whole thing was mucked up. It was not done correctly. They could have stopped the bleeding on that spill much quicker, much better than they did. That whole thing was totally mucked up. The environment will restore itself over time. The natural disaster part of that, Frank, and this is an excellent point to bring up. was that the people that lived there, the animals that were exposed to this man made toxin, were the tragedy. Nature can repair itself and nature will repair itself, but it does take time. It may take 30, 40, 50 years. When Chernobyl melted down in Kiev, Ukraine, the nuclear power plant, they raised that with French green clay, dried seabed clay, whose job on this planet is to absorb toxins and disengage them. So they covered Chernobyl with the French green clay. It stopped the spread of the radiation and it contained the uranium. Now, over time, the plants have come back, the wild animals have come back. So I think when you look at a toxic spill like that, you have to look at nature and then you have to look at humanity. Humans were living right in the spill, and it is very toxic to humans, yes. It's also very deadly and toxic to the wild animals, but nature will restore. What the humans need to do that have been exposed to that toxic spill is that they need to detox, detox, detox. If they consistently detox their body using French green clay, using niacin, vitamin C, and the detoxification elements that nature has put into place that other animals use, if those humans continue to detox daily, they can prevent a lot of disease
Okay,
because of their exposure to that. Yes, go
I'd
ahead.
like to just update the public a little bit. Once again, the World Health Organization has put out information suggesting that aspartame is a carcinogen. That's the first thing I have. And secondly, if you'd like to look at more of Janet's work, go to janethull.com or https:// janethull.com, and you will see all of the work that she's done, things in progress. I don't know how she does it all.
Well, I tell you what, I get a lot of pleasure out of helping others, and I just want to pay it forward, because I cured myself of a near fatal disease and I prevented myself from being dependent on a lifetime of medications. And I wanted to share with others, how I did it. And then when I discovered all of the truth that has been hidden from us about the dangers of aspartame, I just want to share that with people. And of course, now we're resurrecting this topic and bringing it back. I did remember that question that you did ask me that I forgot to answer. And that was about have I been a legal witness or an expert in a trial and about lawsuits against aspartame? Um, in the olden days, and things may change now because now that we can prove that they have known that this was a carcinogen for over 50 years, there may be some litigation that could be won in the courtrooms. But back in the day, when all of this was hidden, none of this, mainstream media kept it from everybody, the government kept it from people. This was hidden from people, just like we're having topics hidden from us today. It was very, very hard for people to win a lawsuit. But there have been many lawsuits against NutraSweet settled out of court because the proof is there. People were able to prove that this harms the human body and that they were aware of it. So lawsuits have been settled out of court. They're under gag order. But I can tell you that one of the lawsuits that was settled was by a woman who went blind in one eye because the methanol in the aspartame will destroy the retina of the eye. And she did win her lawsuit. Many lawsuits have been won. I have been asked to be an expert witness. It's very, very hard to win a lawsuit against products like this. Big pharma is huge. The government is huge. There's a lot of corruption present, and so it's very, very difficult. However, there are some really good lawyers out there now, and with the technology that we have now, I think it's a little bit easier to prove that they knowingly kept this away from public awareness.
Correct. And with the internet and our current communications capabilities, we can actually get information out there better than CNN.
Yeah,
or,
yeah,
oh,
which is why they ban a lot of my videos on YouTube.
oh, I bet they do. Um,
Yeah.
I was holding my breath the last time with with your video going up on our
Uh-huh.
channel, but they're not getting in the way. If they see something that is true, they will let it through, I think. Nah, that's
Yeah,
not right
yeah.
either. But
Well, it's a whole different world, though, isn't it? I mean, there's so many battles to fight right now.
yeah,
Back in
there
the day
is.
when it was just aspartame, they could just shut me up, by telling, like I was interviewed by 60 Minutes, 2020. Those never aired. When I would go on a mainstream Good Day New York, Good Day Washington, they would simply just tell the producer of the show, "Look, at never have her on again, or we'll pull our advertising." So they never asked me back. I've been on NPR one time, you know. But now that we have the internet, like you said, we can get the word out there, and of course, we're not slandering anybody because we are telling the truth. We do have the proof that what we say is true. Not telling anything that's not real. I wouldn't say anything to harm anybody that was not backed up by science or by government documents.
Yes, and people like Coca-Cola and Budweiser, they can make changes without really getting hurt. Um, I mean, Diet Coke, great. Okay, find something else. And what's
Uh-huh.
what's that other sweetener that you mentioned?
Sucralose,
Yes,
Splenda,
uh, the one that's good. You mentioned it last time too.
saccharin, and stevia. Both of those two
Stevia.
are.
Stevia is the one
Hmm.
that I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
will.
Stevia.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Stevia is perfectly safe. It's been used for over 1,500 years, and it's just an herb. It's just a sweet plant, and it is actually used to treat diabetes and gum disease in South and Central America.
Well, and I think you mentioned last time that outside of Washington D.C. was the only place that you could really depend upon getting the right stevia.
No, that Washington State,
Washington
Washington State.
State.
This,
Okay. All
yeah,
right.
yeah. New Stevia, NU Stevia, is an excellent company. And then there's a company in Arlington, Texas, the Stevita Company. They were the original company that brought stevia into the United States in the 1980s. The Stevita Company in Arlington and New Stevia, NU Stevia, in Washington State. Those are really good companies with real pure stevia products. Very good products.
Well, I think that it wouldn't be that big a change for companies to switch. I mean, you're going from one barrel of sweetener to another. Um, I don't know.
Well, you're going from natural sweetness, complex carbs, as opposed to laboratory chemical based simple carb sweeteners. And the chemicals, you want to try to prioritize your poisons. We're exposed to chemicals all the time, and you just want to try to remove as many of them as possible and take out the worst ones that you can. You cannot live in a bubble in our world today, and there are chemicals everywhere. So you do your best to research what you're exposed to, what you know you're exposed to try to get them removed from your life, from your home and your office, and just return to the most natural chemicals, nature's chemicals, such as stevia, which is totally natural. You just want to do the best you can. You want to drink the best water that you can, the freshest water. You want to take the best whole food vitamins that you can. Everybody needs those. We all need an extra multivitamin in this day and time, no matter how good you eat. And because we just want to take the pressure off of our body, we want to give our body the least amount of stress as possible. So when you eat something that it can easily digest and there's no toxic waste left over, that's just all the better for your health and for your mental health as well.
Okay, I wanted to ask you, when someone calls you up or sends you an email or letter, what are they typically trying to get? What's your the top of your field? Hair analysis, toxicology? What are they looking for? Um,
Wow, Frank, you ask the best questions. I'm telling you, you are an easy and a great fun interview. Usually the people that come to me, Frank, are the ones that have been through the system. They've been to their doctors, just like me. When I went to my doctor and I asked my doctor, when I was in the emergency room, well, what's made me sick? Well, he didn't know. So what does he do? He wants to do a bunch of expensive surgical procedures. He wants to keep me on expensive medication that only goes up in inflated value every year. And what people are wanting are some answers, and they're not getting them. The only thing that they're getting from their doctor are an expensive battery of lab tests that are very uncomfortable. They are getting prescriptions that are very expensive, and they're getting absolutely no answers and no solutions. So when people come to me, they're looking for answers, they're looking for solutions, and I can give them those. I do not diagnose anyone, but I can look at their hair analysis, which is a wonderful assay of what's going on inside of the body, which is why they use the hair analysis for forensics to determine the cause of death. If you use it on the living, you can determine the cause of disease. So I can look at their profile as a toxicologist and I can see what toxins are present and I can see how that's affecting what nutrients feed what body system, the exoskeletal, the heart, the pancreas and the blood sugar, the stomach and digestion, hormones. I can see it all in the hair analysis. They're wanting answers. And so I give them answers. I say, okay, guess what? You're toxic in 10. You're toxic in arsenic. You have arsenic poisoning. You need to go find the source of where you're picking up this arsenic. We need to detox you. We need to replace the nutrients that it is totally depleted. We put them on a nutritional program based on what's going on inside of their body. And if they can find the source of the arsenic or the toxins, then they can remove that source. Boom, bang. They can get well. They can restore their health. They can feel better. They get the answers they're looking for. Supplements may be expensive. Detoxification programs may be expensive because you have to buy those, vitamins. But eventually you can get on a maintenance program of just a multivitamin and a vitamin C. And so you have cut the expense of having to go to the pharmacy counter probably by three quarters. It's
oh,
much
that's
cheaper to be
amazing.
healthy.
Yeah,
It's
it
much
sure
cheaper to be
is.
healthy. Yeah.
Yeah. What I was trying to think, what is your primary goal in life at this point in time? And the reason I say that is because you have come up with so many victories and so many defeats. Now you're at the top of a victory. So it's a really good time to ask you,
Uh-huh.
sort of. I mean, what are your goals?
It's just to keep on keeping on. I'm not going to change anything that I do. I'm not going to change any goals that I have because my goals are just to continue to motivate people, to stimulate them and activate them to become better, healthier, more in balance with the earth, more in balance with each other, just to become better, just to strive to become better. and healthier, a more natural way. So, what I want to do is just to continue to turn the light on in people's heads. If I can be the whistleblower that wakes them up, and then once they wake up, then they can just start on their own journey. And their own journey is going to be for better health, better relationships, just being happier and to appreciate their life on this planet because it's pretty darn awesome. We live on a fantastic planet. It's heaven on earth down here. And everything down here could be so beautiful and so good. We just need to remember it can be. So I just want to help people remember. I want to help people wake up. So I'm just going to keep on keeping on.
That's fantastic. That's a really, really great answer to that question. Many people have what I would consider a different answer. But
Really?
yeah, they don't really have any. They have a goal, but they're not sure what it is. And
Uh huh.
have you ever worked with the police to try and solve a murder mystery or anything like that?
Well, I used to be a fireman. I mean, back in the day in my 30s, after I cured myself from Graves' disease
That's
and I
right.
restored my health, on my 1 year anniversary of having gone to the hospital, I won a 100-mile bicycle race in West Texas. And then I mean I'm a female for sure. I am a woman's woman, but I also love the guy thing. I'm a tomboy. I was always a tomboy. I'm a geologist, and I always wanted to be a fireman. So I joined the fire department. And so, yes, I have worked fires, I have worked car accidents, I have removed dead bodies from fatal car crashes, and I've worked with the police when I worked with the fire departments. And I've got to tell you, I have the utmost respect for firemen and for policemen and for emergency room doctors and for ambulance drivers. I used to drive the ambulance for the fire department too. Those people have nothing but benefiting people, helping humanity, love and generosity in their heart. I've seen men go into a burning house to rescue a cat,
That's right.
and they did it out of love. So I feel that policemen, firemen, emergency responders, they have so much love for humanity. It's just who they are and what they do. And they really, really do deserve our respect and our support. Absolutely, for sure.
Fantastic. Well, I think
You
we've.
didn't expect that answer, did you?
Well, I'll tell you straight up, if I turned on the television and I pulled up an old episode of Chicago Fire, I would, I, if you were there, I'd expect you to be.
Well, I tell you, I have uncovered poisoning in people. There was one of my clients was suspecting that her ex-husband was poisoning her, and he indeed was. She had arsenic poisoning in the hair analysis, and she returned my report. I did work with the police, and they were able to prove that he was indeed poisoning her with arsenic. So, to kind of back up your question, yes, I have worked with people that have been suspecting that they were being poisoned. The hair analysis is a really wonderful tool to determine that. You can't fight it. You cannot disagree with its results. It's
That's
pretty
right.
conclusive. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I would like to thank you, Janet, once again for appearing this evening. And I would like to thank our listening audience. And I would like to say good night from Boston, Massachusetts. My name
Well, thank
is Frank Allen.
thank you, Frank.
Thank you. Have a good night. God bless everyone.